This is a story about the mystery of identical twins. Identical twins don't run in families. They crop up out of the blue, and no one knows why. Early in pregnancy, the single ball of cells suddenly splits in two. Each half will carry the same blueprint. The twins should be clones, absolutely identical. But geneticist Dr. John Byrne believes they're not always the same. This could be the key to unlock the mystery of twinning itself. The story starts here in Newcastle more than 10 years ago, when John Byrne began his research into twins after working with children's heart specialist Stuart Hunter.
I had heard about John Byrne when he was a medical student, and I first met him when he came to be our registrar here on the Children's Heart Unit. I became aware at a very early stage that he was very interested in congenital heart disease, but even more interested in genetics.
What we're doing here, Mum, is we're looking at the way the heart connects all of the chambers and vessels together, and the colours are showing me the way the blood flows.
Congenital means born with, and every year thousands of babies are born with serious heart defects, like holes in the heart. It's even worse for identical twins. In every 25 sets, at least one baby will be affected. But each time, it's only one of the pair. For many years, this was the only proof that heart defects couldn't be passed on. Genetics is about inheritance, and the experts said that if a heart defect was inherited, both twins would automatically get it, because they're identical. John Byrne is now convinced they were wrong. So the big question for John was, why were so many twins born with heart defects? And why was it only one of the pair?
Twins are a malformation to whom nature was kind. Something went wrong or changed in their very earliest stages of development to make them divide and become two people. And the question that one always has to ask is, could it be that the twinning process itself might have some influence on the disease that you're studying?
I thought you might be interested in this young man who, as you see, has a positive family history in that he has a cousin who actually died of heart disease.
Altogether, I was able to get information on 20,000 twin pairs from Liverpool, Aberdeen and Birmingham. And among those twin individuals, the consistent story was that there were more heart defects among identical twins. And the figure was about twice as high as single children and non-identical twins.
It's obviously a bit of a worrying history, isn't it?
The body knows its left from its right during development. Now, in order for us almost always to be the same way around, you have to decide very early on which is your left, which is your right, in addition to deciding which is going to be the front and back and the top and bottom. All of the evidence from the biology studies suggested that the left side of the ball of cells would say, I'm the left, everyone from here is on the right. The next question is, well, what happens if you become a twin? Because, of course, you don't become twins by some great meat cleaver in the sky chopping you in half. What happens is that you gradually develop apart, you developmentally separate. And so you've got these two balls of cells that have separated from one. The one on the right is no longer in communication with the left side of the ball of cells. So it's lost its point of reference. The thing is that the heart is very special among all the organs of the body, that it absolutely has to know its left from its right. Because it starts off in the middle as a tube. It's just like a big pipe that sticks out of the chest. And in order to make this pipe into the four-chamber heart that we have as adults, you have to twist and curve and bend it. And the very first step in that process is that this pipe bends to the right. It sort of buckles to the right. Now, it can only buckle to the right to exactly the right amount if the right side keeps growing and the left side stops growing. And for it to do that, it needs to know which is the left and right side. It is one clear method that would only affect one of the pair of twins, because the left half still knows where he is. The right half has got a bit confused.
Sometimes these twins are mirror images of one another. When this happens, it's always the right half who gets the heart problem.
When the twins were born, we were taking them to the Freeman Hospital at Newcastle, and we became in contact with John Byrne. And what he was telling us was that Michael and Stuart are mirror twins. And you can see that if you look at them, and you look, for example, at the crown and the hair on the back of the head. One's on the left, one's on the right. Stuart's problem is not just he's got a hole, but his heart is twisted and deformed, and the hole's in an awkward position.
They wouldn't do the operation when he was a baby. They say the older he was, the bigger the heart was. They described it between a watch and a grandfather clock. The bigger the heart is, the more they'll know what to do, which simplified it a bit for us, and you can understand why they wait till he's older.
One of the things with Stuart's condition is that he's a lot smaller than Michael. They look as if there's a 1 or 2 year age gap between them.
You wanted people to say, oh, look, aren't they lovely, but they used to just get little snide remarks. Oh, they're not twins, one's bigger than the other, and such like. But he's a lot smaller than his brother, but he can do most things the same. But he knows his limitations. He stops when he's had enough. I'll call them little and large. One's little and one's large, and they tell jokes.
They're also comedians, certainly comedians. To some extent, it helps Stuart come to terms with his size. He's small in his class, and it's a tough old world, and kids are going to make fun of him. Kids are cruel. But that's a way of making him accept it. Perhaps you can see a long-term career for him opening up, and his size would be a benefit.
Why did the bubble gum cross the road? Got stuck to the chicken's leg. What do you call a spider with no legs? A current. What do you call a fly with no wings? A walk.
John Byrne came across the Hogarth twins as part of his massive twin study. The family now lives near London, and Stuart is seen regularly at Great Ormond Street.
This is the only angiogram we have of Stuart, which, as you can see, was done when he was 8 months old.
Yes, that's just a month before his operation up in Newcastle, wasn't it? But you haven't done any further investigation since then?
We had not done any further investigations because we had reviewed these and realised what the state of his heart and circulation was, and we deferred doing anything more with the plan to wait until he was 10 years of age, which is, of course, next year.
We don't really think of him as a child with anything wrong with him, apart from maybe 2 weeks before he's due an appointment, and then we really get anxious and worried. You know, it hits home that something's wrong with him.
Hi, Clarence. How are you? Fine. Good. Okay. Okay, chaps, go on. Let's go upstairs, shall we? Come on.
Come on. Yeah.
Right, Stuart looks in pretty good order. How's he been since we last met?
No problems, he's been fine. Fine.
And he's just as active?
As active as he always was. Yes.
He doesn't appear to be getting increasingly out of breath.
No problems at all.
What about his colour? He's always a reasonable pink colour, is he?
Just when it's cold, he tends to...
That's right. Sometimes if we take him swimming, when he comes out of the water, he doesn't like to stay in the water too long.
And you think he's more blue under those conditions than perhaps his brothers are?
Yeah.
He's never had any episodes where he's fainted or become dizzy at all?
No.
Every year, more than 5,000 babies are born with heart defects. Some of them will die, and at least a quarter will need major surgery while they're still tiny. Parents want to know why the heart problem happened, and if it could happen again to future children. They want to know if it was hereditary.
Now, it's important to remember that something can be genetic and yet not run in families very often. There are two reasons for that. One could be that it could be a mixture of genes that causes the problem. You might have to have a certain pattern of genes before you get into trouble. The second factor could be that there are chance factors. In other words, if you cross the road with your eyes closed, sometimes you get across without being run over, but sometimes you do get run over. And so, in other words, you might have a genetic fault, but you don't always get into trouble.
Experts used to say that heart defects couldn't be inherited because among identical twins only one of the pair was affected. But John showed this problem in twins was actually caused by the twinning process. Once he'd realized that, he began to screen families where parents had themselves been born with heart defects.
It struck me that we should look at the offspring, at the children of people with heart defects. Now, 20 years ago, that was impossible. You just couldn't find very many of them because they didn't grow up to have children. From the mid-60s onwards, the success of cardiac surgery has meant that an increasing proportion are getting through to become adults and being very fit and healthy and having families of their own.
Right, Janice, remember we've got you here to look at your baby's heart.